Hello friends, welcome back. This is Madan again. In this video we are going to document our API endpoints and so that the consumer of our API would know exactly what our API is returning back. For instance, let's say we develop the weather API, or we develop any other kinds of API, and our API is consumable by many other client applications or the other developers, and then we need to document them properly. So this is the same project that we created in our previous demo, and I have run the project here, and if we see in the Swagger dashboard, then we have our product resource, and it has a get, post, put, delete, and get product by ID method here. And if we see on this get action, if I click, and then we see that it in the responses it returns 200 on success. That means the code is 200 and description is success, means that the consumer of the API or any other developer can, by looking at this documentation, would know that this API endpoint, that is API slash product, returns 200 on success. But they doesn't know, or the consumer doesn't know what this endpoint returns in case the exception occurred, or the what type of information or the data that this API endpoint is returning. That information is missing here. Same is the case for the post, put, delete, and the get. Since if we look in this, then we can see that in the responses we only have the 200 documentation for the success status, and we are missing the documentation for exception and the type of the information this endpoint would return. So we are going to implement that feature in this demo. So let's jump over to the Visual Studio, and this is the same controller that we created in our previous demo. And so to document the API here in .NET 5, it is very simple. Now let's first wrap this get inside try catch, so that we can return a bad request on in case of exception. So try catch exception, and then say ex, and then return bad request ex dot to string. Let's say we are returning the actual exception message here. So now in order to document the endpoint, we have an attribute here, and that attribute is produces response type, and inside this we can specify status codes dot. So let's bring in the namespace for status codes, and it is in the namespace of microsoft.aspnetcode.http. And then now we can specify the type of status message or the response it returns. So by looking at this method, we can see that if we didn't find the product, then it returns not found. So what we can do is we can do http status code dot not found, status 404 not found. And another is if we successfully fetched the product, then we are returning okay. That means we are going to return the success as well as the product. So what we can do is produces response response type. Now status codes dot okay, status okay. And here we can also specify the type of the product or the type of information it returns. That means we can do type equal to, now we are returning the product, so we can give type of product here. And now we are also returning the bad request, so the consumer should know that my mistake, this should be type of. Our consumers should also know that they would return what they gets if the exception occurred in our endpoint. That is, we are returning the bad request, and now we can specify produces produces response type, and then status course dot bad request, that is the 404. Now in this case also, what we can do is we can return the document this endpoint, and it returns not found. If we did not find the product, we could not find the product, it returns okay. If it found if we find the product, and it returns the bad request. That means we can do the same thing here. We can copy, and then let's paste it here. So we have not found, and the consumer will know that this will return not found, and they will know that this will return 200 on success and it returns product, and this will return bad request in case of any exception. Similarly, in case of the product creation method or the HTTP post of this endpoint, we can do pro produces response type and then the status course dot. Now by looking into this method, we see that this returns created, and with the created URL, the resource URL and the created product itself. So we have another type of status here, status 201 created, and if anything exception, if any exception occurred in this endpoint, then we should return the bad request, and our API is returning the validation problem. So we can do is produces response type of status course dot bad request. Now you can apply the same type of documentation for updates. So here we can apply not found, okay, status 200 and then the bad request, and in case of delete also we are returning not found if we did not if we could not find the product, and we are returning no content if everything happens successfully. That means here we do produces response type of status course dot not found, and then another is the produces response type of status course dot. So we are returning no content, we can do no content, that is 204 no content. And another one is the bad request if anything wrong occurred during this API call. So PRO produces response type status course dot bad request. So now let's run this application and then see what we get into the Swagger dashboard, or what information we are giving to our consumer, to the consumer of our API. So now I'm clicking on this get, and then now the extra information, now I'm clicking on this get API slash product get method, and then now we are getting the more information. So in the responses we have 200, that means we get 200 status code if if we successfully fetched the data from the API. And then now another piece of information has added here, that means this API would return 400 in case of any exception occurred. And also here we can see that the example value and schema, that means what type of the result the API returns, that means it returns the product with ID and the name properties here. That means this information is given by this type equal to type of product, and 404 200 and 400 status code is given by these statements here, or these attributes here. Again, if we look into our another endpoint, let's say post endpoint, then now we can see that the we get 201 if we successfully created our product, and we get 400, and that is the bad request. So if I remove this where is the create method? If I remove this, or let's comment this and then see. Now let's see the post endpoint. Now we only have this information, that is 201 and success, and the consumer of this API have no clue about what this API returns in case of any validation problem or the exception, and the only way for them to know is to debug the application. But if we provide this type of documentation, then they will know everything in advance. So let's test it once again. Now let's click on post, and then we see that if anything wrong happens, then we get the 400 bad request. In this way we can make our API endpoints documentation, and make the life of our consumers or the clients easy. So this is it in this video, friends, and if you like this video, then please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a great day.